Good morning, podcast community of givers and our safe community. In the house is a regular guest who co-hosts the Mindset podcast with us, Eryk Watson. And so, Eryk, I want you to, for those that don't know you, maybe there's a few out there, tell them who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Yeah, so I'm Eryk Watson. What I do, I work in finance. Do a lot in that space, helping people there, and who I serve are families on the personal side and on the business side. So it's a lot we do in that wheelhouse. But aside from that, outside of that, I love helping the kids, giving back from a basketball brain. So,
well, that's so good. I love it every time I hear it. I was at Rotary, and this guy was a high-level Army Ranger, and they help people transition into the private at the highest level, because when you perform at a high level, and I'm sure you have that same mindset, is you're used to challenging yourself. You're used to pushing yourself. I mean, you don't go from sixth grade playing basketball to the professional ranks just like haphazardly getting there. You're a man on a mission of wanting to achieve a high level that only a few people do. And that takes a mindset. That's why I think when we first started talking about mindset, well, when we first started talking at that table at Miller's Ale, I was amazed at your story. And so here's where I'm going with this is I want our viewers to understand the mindset it takes to go from, hey, that's something I want to achieve, to absolutely crushing it and achieving that level. So let's go to our young listeners, because I think it'll help us. Like the first couple years, you're just working on your skill. You're just getting better and better and better. Did you have like some thoughts like, hey, maybe I ought to better hang out with my friends and party and have a good time, versus continuing to work? What was going through your mind back then that you kept moving forward, kept getting better, that our viewers can get a better understanding?
yeah, so just trying to think about which stage to kind of tap into, because what's going through my, yeah. So in my younger years, like, I mean, if we talking about like when I first was getting started, like, I mean, in like the youth, like we talking like elementary, middle school.
Well,
like
let's go to high school. I think that's more because you would have a bunch of years under your belt, but still, people go to high school, they play basketball, they don't get to college, and they don't get to the professional ranks. So let's go back to your high school mindset.
Okay, yeah. So high school, to your point, as far as like focusing and cutting things out. So it's like, okay, you start to see people going to college and like, hey, like I'm pretty good at this thing, but I want to continue playing. I want to play at the next level. Well, the mindset was just me having to be honest with myself and like, hey, man, there's a lot of talented players, people who even have just more natural ability than I did, and some people aren't going to that next level. So it's like, hey, what is it going to take? Like, that's where it's like, hey, man, I need to be really on point with my time. So again, it's either everything comes with a sacrifice. Either I want to go to college and I want to excel, or I want to hang out, party, and do these other different things. And for me, like, I had a great circle around me and still keep in touch with a lot of them. Like, I mean, high school around, like, there was no smoking, there was no drinking, there was no nothing. Like, we were just really, really in love with the game. So every chance we had it. We were playing. And so spend those times with the individual workouts. My coach instilled like a very hard work ethic as far as like our conditioning. And so, it was, hey, you're not gonna get out of it unless what you put into it. So the mindset was like, hey, if you have this goal, like, you really need to stay focused on it and really chase it. So, and you're gonna have to sacrifice. Like, what are you willing to do that the person next to you is not willing to do? And so that had to really resonate. So for instance, it was like I had this mindset of, don't just train for what the eye can see, train for what the eye can't see. And meaning, It's like, even if I'm having a good practice or whatnot amongst my teammates, you're doing the best one in the gym. Okay, cool. But are you working harder than the person you can't see that's on another team that's in a different state? Are you going harder than them? Because that's what you have to think about. There could be somebody out there who played in a championship game last year and like they had the game won and they turned the ball over at the very end and lost the game, and now they're sitting on it all summer. You think that person's just sitting back chilling? Like, no, they're like training their fuel off of that, trying to get back to that moment. So it's like, hey, are you outworking that person? Do you want it more than that person? So that's where my mindset was, and that's what I would say was driving me, just knowing that if I wanted this, I needed to work and sacrifice and be willing to work harder than the people who I couldn't see.
Yeah, I had my partner, we did our session where we were talking about just going through updating on stuff, and he's now involved in writing a book called Driven. I mean, it's a book out there. The guy that's behind it is an assessment. And there's only, you take this assessment and it really evaluates you on, I think it's either 10 or 12 different like matrix. And it's really to determine how driven are you. Because if you're not driven and you're not like focused, you're not persevering, you're not handling the setbacks, you'll and it shows the typical person. It was a smaller circle. What would you say? Because before we got on the air, we were talking about you're going to go see your coach today. So what part of that process in high school did that coach have in your mindset? Did he challenge you? Did he kind of give a perspective that maybe, and I love your perspective is what you can't see, because that's so powerful. But let's give our viewers that influence of that coach who's really trying to get the most out of you. What would he say to you that kind of just resonated, ongoing?
Oh man, there's so much, but the main one, he was big, man. He played such a pivotal role, and I guess like even instilling a work ethic, man. Because number one, just kind of paint that picture, Coach Bonner, he was awesome, man. Like to this day, like my whole career even playing professional, like my hardest years in conditioning was in high school. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man. So what instilled, he had this quote. The main quote was, "Excuses not accepted, get the job done." So to this point of like challenging, we had it on T-shirts and everything else. So he would come in like day one. I mean, first day of school, we out there running, and it was like all these hard, strenuous things, and a lot of lessons that you didn't understand at the time, just being in high school. But man, was he really setting us up for life? By the time I got to college, I mean, like I was ready. So everything from again the hard workouts, running, going right back to lifting. Hey, ref called a foul. Like, we're not complaining to referees. Like, we're going to keep playing, So somebody's talking, like, eye contact, just to yell, just like nothing out of line. Like, be still. Somebody's talking. Like, it was just so Mustang time. Like, make sure you're there 15 minutes ahead. Like, yeah, practice starts at 6, but you need to be ready at 5:45,
Yeah.
So there was so many different lessons. I mean, we would start practice every day. He would have a motivational quote. I'm a very motivational person now. Like, I love quotes, and I started doing that with my team. He would have a quote we had to memorize before practice, and then stay locked in on practice. And at the end of practice, he would call on somebody. You had to have the quote memorized, otherwise you keep running. So just like planting seeds on just how to like doing those things, focus, because here it is, like you have this quote you have to memorize from the beginning of practice to the end of practice. Now you have to stay locked in practice, because hey, know the plays, be here, react to this, react to that. The sport, basketball, is constantly going. So now you translate into a game. There's a lot of things that are changing, a lot of moving pieces. So just the ways that he would teach focus, the way that he would teach, like you just got to keep pushing, keep grinding. So man, yeah. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
like,
it does. And, I love what you said about the 15 minutes early. There was a gentleman, he was at McEachern, and he was a counselor, teacher. He's now at Osborne, but he had said that very thing. If you're on time, if you're on time, you're 15 minutes late. That show up 15 minutes before. That's the on time. So it was like if the person just gets there 1 minute before and thinks they're on time, he would say, no, you're 15 minutes or you're 14 minutes late. And it really does communicate coming prepared, because you're going to run into things like you get out of class late, you run into traffic, like people will come in, they go, hey, I'm sorry that the traffic was held me back. I said, how long have you lived in Atlanta? I mean, traffic is traffic. You got to allow for that. It's not like it's a surprise, like, oh, wow, we got traffic. But it is very appropriate that you instill in, and I know you're giving back now because you're coaching kids. And what do you think for your coach? I mean, he's obviously created a legacy because you're now giving back. So you've duplicated his efforts. You're pouring into youth. You're doing the same thing he did for you. How did do you know anything about his story? Like, was he the first to kind of become that coach that challenged youth and challenged people and got that mindset right?
What do you mean? Like, was he the first one at the school?
Yeah, like, did he get it from another mentor, or did he establish like a mindset that he was going to challenge his team and be like, I'm just curious, maybe you don't know the answer, you can ask him today, but where does this start? Does it start with him reading, absorbing, learning, or did he have a mentor that is started with? Do you know the answer? Just curious to that.
I don't know the answer. That's a really good question. I do not know the answer. So maybe it came from his playing days. I know he played in college, and oddly enough, he played at the college that I played against in college. But yeah. So, but to be honest, yeah, I don't know that answer. That's a good question to ask.
But I always remember people would say, you have your high school athletes. Every level you go up, it gets smaller and smaller. So the pyramid is reversed when you move up in the ranks of anything, really. And so there's fewer people that are going to make it to the next level, whatever it is. So were there times like you're playing college ball, like, did you grasp the fact that to get to the next level, it's going to, that window or that group of people is going to be very small? Because I don't know what the number is, maybe you do. How many kids that start playing ball or a sport make it to the professional ranks? Did you look at that number and go, dang, that ain't many people?
No, so I didn't, because my mindset was like, I'm going to make this happen. Like, this is what I want, and I want to make this happen. And that's like, it was just being just that driven and that determined. And it was like, was it scary? Absolutely. I remember, again, the scariest parts are when it's like your senior year and it's your last ride, and it's like, so you've been literally working your whole life, and here comes this moment, here comes this dream. And I remember going like the summer, my off seasons, like it would be very, very therapeutic for me, just really working out and doing these different things. And so like I remember I switched my workout up. Me and one of my best friends, so I had this drill I would do to where it's like, hey, my warm up, I would make 100 threes. And so the goal was to make 100 threes while missing less than 40. Well, by the time, my senior year rolled around, I was able to do it like missing under 25. And so by doing that, it was like the work ethic, like, okay, I'm ready, so, but on top of that, I was like, okay, I know it's very hard to get to the next level, especially coming from a Division III school. So the mindset was, okay, there's a lot of talented people that have not gone overseas. What is something that can happen that can make that happen for me? And I was like, well, that's God, so, and I'm just a believer. Everybody has to have their own, walk of faith. Like, everybody has their own path. And so for me, that was a pivotal point for me getting closer to Christ that way. And man, like, it was just, I heard a message like, hey, you got to start speaking your dream into existence, because what'll start happening, people like, your senior year of college, you're running somebody, yeah, so okay, well, what do you plan on doing when you graduate? And so as a college kid, it's like, oh yeah, I want to go into business. And that was like the traditional answer. But what I really wanted to do was go overseas and play basketball. And so I had to start, the message was start saying that, like, hey, I'm going to go overseas and play professional basketball. I'm going to go overseas, start playing. And the more you do that, the more you feel it, the more you feel confident about it. And that's what I started doing. And man, but behind the work ethic that I put in, getting closer with my walk of faith. And hey, man, the numbers that season was just phenomenal for me. And one thing led to another, like broke a lot of records. And, by the time the season was done, like I stacked up my resume enough to where I was getting notice from different agents, and the rest is history.
Well, yeah, I love that. So did you play in Brazil or Romania first?
So ironically, I had an actually interesting role, believe it or not. So my first deal was actually to Iceland. So I got signed to a place in Iceland.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So this will be a ride for you. So I got my first deal in Iceland, and I'm there. I'm excited. So, but the first day I get off the plane, the GM, he's like, "Oh, you're not as tall as what I thought you would be." I was like, "Oh,
really?"
I was like, well, hello to you too. So, so I'm there for a little bit, and we have these preseason games, have a tournament, so when I do well, I put up my numbers and, leading the scoring, steals, defense, so doing well. So we won all of we played 4 games. We won 3 out of the 4. The one game that we lost was to the defending champs. And so at the end of the game, they're like, yeah, well, we don't want to start the season on 5 like we did last year, so we're going to let you go. And I'm like, hold on, wait, what? Like, what just happened? Wow. So then I'm thinking to myself, all this work and it's just going just like that. Well, so that didn't happen. So I went to Czech Republic. And so I get to Czech Republic. And now, mind you, I'm going there because I had a great agent. And so go to Czech Republic. My first day there's a game. I don't know any players. I don't know teammates. I don't know coaches. I don't know anything. So I get there for like a morning practice, and they're like, the head coach doesn't speak any English. There's an assistant coach. That's also a player on the team. I'd never seen that before, but he wasn't there for the morning practice. But the morning practice, the head coach is pretty much like, hey, I want to see what you can do. Play one-on-one with these 3 players. So did that, won those, and then here comes the game that night. And so we're down like 20 or something at halftime. I haven't played yet, and somebody gets hurt, somebody goes down, so they put me in the game. We end up winning again, coming back, winning the game, and we come back great. And I'm like, okay, cool, like this is great, So spending that week with the team, and about 2 weeks later, they have to come down and like really make a decision because they're going on this travel tour. And so like I'm getting closer with the team, and everything's great. So, but then all of a sudden they're like, all right, hey, well, come down time, we got to make a decision, and we're going to go a different route. And so like, I was really, really confused about that. Right. And so the team, my teammates loved me, and they were shocked when they got the news. And so what come to find out, one of my teammates, he called the guy who made the decision. He was like, hey, I heard we're not keeping Eryk or whatnot. What happened? Like, cause he clearly helped what's going on. And so he didn't know I was on speaker at the time. And so what happened was he was like, yeah, oh yeah, he could definitely play. Yeah, he's good enough. But what happened was, it's like, man, I got one of my friends called, and he said he really needed a job. So I'm just going to give it to him instead. And so to hear that,
really,
you know what I'm saying? Like you put your whole body of work, and it's something that you earned. And then for somebody to be like, oh yeah, no, man, my buddy called, so I'm looking at him, and it's like, yo, wait a minute. Like, this isn't just, we're talking about a job now. So that's what happened with Czech. And then so Romania comes around, and so somebody got hurt in Romania. So I was going out there to actually go fill that position. And so by the time I get there, I'm like, man, that's 2 spots that I've done well, but I haven't done anything wrong, but it just hadn't worked out. So I'm like, so you kind of walking on eggshells. So, but I get there, and I'm playing well, doing my thing in Romania, but I had just been through so much. I was like, man, I just need like to clear my head. And at the time I had the long braids, and it was hard to find somebody to braid my hair over there. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come back at the end of this and just kind of clear my head. So did that, was doing well, putting up numbers, and came back. And so that was that situation. And then Brazil, I got a contract with Brazil, and I was like, man, when I got out there, that situation was great. And for me, because I didn't go to the big Division I school, that was a chip on my shoulder. I was like, I wanted to play, prove to
Right.
myself, like, hey, why didn't I get these D1 looks? So I get out there, and I have all these different teammates and everything else, and even Romania too. But really, really latched on to one in particular, and it was just like, man, to be out there and putting up those different numbers, it was the checkbox for me. Like, I mean, I had stories there, just really great experiences. But because I had been through so much early on, I knew that I was like, okay, I don't want to continue to be in a situation where somebody has that much control of my life.
Right.
Because in the off season, you're literally just waiting on a phone call to where it's like, hey, we got
Really?
this deal for you here, you got this deal for you there. And so for me, I wanted to play to prove to myself I could play at that highest level. I could
Mm-hmm.
perform high at this highest level, and then check all those boxes. And so once I did that, I was good. Like, I mean, I kind of played one on one, like a little friendly game with my
Yeah.
guy who played at the University of Michigan. It turned to super competitive, but not in a bad way, like in a healthy way. And like that was
Mm-hmm.
like my big moment. But man, it was really cool. I had a game where I almost got a Nike contract out in Brazil.
Really? Dang. You
Yeah.
know, Tommy Stoner, who's an Army Ranger, and he performed. He gave us a breakdown of really the level of really the mindset of a person that had been 20 to 35 years.
Hmm.
It was mind blowing. And one thing he said was, when people get to this highest level, they just figure it out. They're used to being thrown in the most difficult situations. And like you said, like, guy brings in a friend and you're off to another country. You could take that and go, man, this isn't fair. But probably your mom maybe have said this, life isn't fair. I mean, if you're looking for a fair anything, it just ain't fair. It's just the way it is. But how we take it and what we do with whatever it is creates a stronger mindset. I'm curious, like, you're in a foreign country, you don't speak the language, because I have people that I didn't even know in Brazil they spoke Portuguese. I thought it was like Spanish, and I said, "So you speak Spanish fluently?" And she goes, "Well, I can speak it, but we speak Portuguese." I went, "What? Brazil, Portuguese?" And I was like, didn't have any idea. And so it's kind of like we sit in our little bubble here, or wherever it is, and we don't know what's going on in other countries because we're not part of it. What would you say when you were in Brazil? You obviously you're not fluent in Portuguese. How do you survive that culture? What would you tell our viewers that you're in an uncomfortable situation when you can't speak the language? I don't know. What do you do? A lot of sign things? How did you get around? How did you communicate?
Yeah. I mean, so a couple of the players, they spoke English as well.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. So it was broken, but it was like, just like somebody here speaks Spanglish, so they speak English, like, you had one or two of them that was like really fluent in English. The head coach, he spoke a little bit of English, but the easiest thing is like or try and learn their language as well. But imagine, I mean, the people were so welcoming, and that helps. I mean, like, they really bring you in, part of the culture, and just that environment is just great. So what it's like is you get there, I mean, they show you where you're living, they're showing you, places that you eat, walks to the gym or whatnot. But to kind of paint that picture, it's trying to think the best way to say this. Like, yeah, man, like, they imagine being like a celebrity or whatnot. Like, if you move in, a celebrity moved in next door, everybody's gonna know who that celebrity is, right?
Hmm.
So there, it's like, hey, we want to make sure nothing's hard for you, access for you. And it was the same aspect. You have people that's there to kind of help you out. Hey, this is the way around. Hey, can I help you out? I mean, I've had people like close down shop. Like, if I need a direction somewhere, which they did not have to do, they've literally like closed down shops and walked me somewhere. And I was like, wow, like you didn't you didn't have to do that. But that just tells you about like how the people are. Yeah, because they're excited to share their culture with you, bring you to their family. Hey, this is how we do things. And then when they see you trying to learn their language and get involved with their language as well, it's like I love, and to this day, I love learning about the different cultures, so I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, you always, from day one, I was impressed with your open-mindedness. And I think that speaks to that, to say, like, I'm going to learn whatever I need to learn to connect with people. Now, he said something during his talk at Rotary that I want you to just kind of comment on. You know, what they're challenged with is when you achieve a high level, like you're performing at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
you are used to performing at the highest level. So when you transition out of, and this was his transition out of the military, you're transitioning to an environment that you still want that high level of performance, whatever you're doing. What he said was once he had a conversation with employers, they would understand that he had the ability to adapt, to change, to do anything. Whatever the situation, you have to figure it out because you're in Iraq, you're in Afghanistan, you're thrown into a situation. It's not like this is a predictable path. You always have to assess what's going on and make decisions. So what he said with employers are once they understood the mindset, they said you're hired. But until they understand the mindset of a person that spent 25, 30 years dealing with the most adverse situations, they can't appreciate what a skill that's developed. So I want you to take me back or take the viewers back to when you all of a sudden you're saying, okay, I'm ready to transition into the private sector. How did you go about assessing those opportunities? Did you look at different career paths? Give our viewers a little bit of idea because I know if I'm an employer and I'm talking with you, I'm hiring you because your mindset to get to that highest level didn't happen in 2 weeks, didn't happen in 1 year, didn't happen in 15 years. It happened in 20 years, probably, if you go back. So how did you pick finance and choose to go the path now that you're currently in?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a really great question. So first, when I was first coming out, like, did I have an exact pinpoint? All right, yeah, I'm gonna do it exactly like this. Like, no, like, yeah, it was like, okay, I know I'm done. Going into it, I had a mentor, and I knew that I was gonna go into my major, like with business and organizational management. So I knew I was gonna go into like the commercial side of like insurance. And
Mm-hmm.
so coming out of it, the thing was like I knew I had to get some office experience because it's resume wise, it just says professional athlete. It's cool, but it's still not what's on the resume. So
Yeah, there's
what I
more
need,
to it. Yes.
yeah, so I needed to get some office experience. And so an opportunity kind of arose where I was able to help my old coach, my old college coach. He was the new head coach down in LaGrange and do that and work in admissions. And so, ironically enough, like I didn't like talking in front of people, but I was working in admissions, and it gave me an opportunity to like start talking in front of people and help coach. I enjoy giving back. I just really had to kind of self-assess, like, what is it that I enjoy doing, so I can see myself doing long term. Because the mindset was there, like if I put my mind to something, I know I can do it. The
Yeah.
question is am I going to like it? I don't want to go something where it's like a year or two and I don't like it, and I built something and it's hard to transition out of. So that's where it was. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew I loved helping people. Um, and finance always stuck out to me because at a young age, I had a teammate. His dad played in the pros, and he had an agent that kind of took advantage of him. And so that seed got planted in me younger to like always being to know with like money.
Mm-hmm.
because of my journey, like, I mean, all the different sports teams I played on, the different cultures and people who I got to know, one of the things that I learned was like, hey, man, a lot of people, no matter the walk of life or the culture or whatnot, a lot of people just aren't having those meaningful financial conversations. So it's, and money is a topic, is a stress point for a lot of people. It's a topic for in a lot of homes, but ironically enough, it's just not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And so you go through these different paths, and like, I mean, I ended up coaching a youth organization, getting to know more families and doing that there. And the goal there was to help them get to college, scholarships, and play for free. And so what does that do? That frees them up.
Yes.
It takes a huge burden off of it. Think all the people who have student debt, student loan debt. So being able to help people relieve that and just get that relief off of them, that's a good feeling. So
Yes.
so to get where I am now, like, I love taking, it's almost like I love saying as far as like, so I went from like winning championships on the court to winning financial victories with my clients now, because I love the aspect where I get to help somebody on the front end, like to give back and all my experiences and the stuff that didn't make sense now. Like I feel like there's not a kid that I can't relate to because of my experiences. So, and now, like, hey, these are things you could be doing with money. These are buckets you could be setting up. These are things you could be doing from a family aspect. It's like, hey, these are buckets you could be setting aside now. These are moves you could be making now. Hey, to keep your kid in sports or to keep them in a private school, so I can help on a lot of different ways, or getting organized, so a lot of different things that we do. And so just my heart of giving back and wanting to be that guide that I didn't have when I was younger is how I got to where I am now.
Dang, you crushed. I mean, I'll use a baseball term. You just knocked it out of the park. And so as we wind down, I want to be respectful of your time. So let me go to a quick little, how can they get a hold of you? Let me think right here. Okay, let me find this. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to be the person here. I want our viewers to take this away. You want a long-term strategy. You want somebody that has the mindset to give back, and you want somebody that's going to give you the financial discipline that it takes to be a professional athlete to take you through the journey. And I want people to recognize that not everybody can do that. And Eryk has done it. It's not like when I first saw him, I looked down at his hand and he had 2 rings on. I'm going, holy mackerel, are these like Super Bowl rings? I was going like, this is cool, because you don't get these rings just from buying them from the jewelry store or Walmart. You earn them. And so our conversation started around, how the heck did you get these rings? And so we talked, and then you got on the podcast, and then I learned more about your story, and I understand your mindset of how it is to achieve that level of achievement. It's a high performance. So tell our viewers that are listening to it on Spotify, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me at the number listed below, 404-788-3679. Or if you want to shoot me an email, you can do it at eryk.watson@cplanning.com. So, but yeah, definitely a good way. I'd love to hear from you. Love to connect with you, whether it's share my story, talking business, whatnot. But yeah, love to get to know you a little bit.
That is awesome. Okay. That is so cool. So look, you can always go on Podcaster Pete Kane and you'll see Spotify on there. You can click on there and then search, or just go on the Spotify, search Eryk's name, and you'll be able to see his episodes up there, because it's important when you're making decisions of who you're going to be doing business with, or who you're going to hang around with, hang around the right people. You want people that are going to lift you up, not tear you down. So when you're making decisions, mentors are critical. And you can hear past episodes of Eryk talking about his mentors that shaped him as he grew up. And I think for our younger people that are in that journey, surround yourself with good people. And and find out about them. You can always listen to podcasts because you get to hear stories. And Eryk's going to be regular on the mindset because you're not going to find a person with a better mindset because he's done it. He has done it. He's not talking about it. He's sharing his journey, which I told a person the other day, it's like when you connect the heart with the head, it's just you're speaking from the heart and it connects because you're not telling somebody to do something that you haven't done. And that's the cool thing. He's going to visit his coach. So we're going to put it out there. Coach, come on and be a guest on our podcast with Eryk because I want to hear how your mindset of planting those seeds, putting those kids through a high level of performance to get to help them to really raise their performance up. So thank you so much. Before we go, we always ask this question. What would be the one thing you want our podcast, our viewers to hear or to take away from our podcast this morning?
Yeah, I'm gonna start coming ready with my shit. I feel like it's a good opportunity to start sharing some more quotes.
Yes,
I do, but yeah, just based off today's, it's just like, man, yeah, like the biggest takeaway of the mind is a powerful thing, and even if there's something that you feel may be hard, impossible, or whatever, like you got to protect your dream, lock in on it. Don't let anybody or don't let any comment or whatnot take you away from it because it's for you. God gave it to you, and so don't let somebody make a comment or do anything away that's gonna like crush your dream. Hold on to it, lock in on it, focus on it, and go get it.
That is awesome. So I want our viewers share this with somebody that you think will connect with Eryk's message and the mindset that he has at such young compared to me. You're not quite half my age, but you're not that far off. So if you can get finances compounding and working on it from an early age, you'll be able to hit your retirement like my age and have everything licked. So it's not too early to start having the mindset you need to have to really secure your future. So I want to thank you, Eryk, for being a guest. Thank you so much for sharing your mindset with our viewers, and we appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and I hope everyone has a great day.
You bet.